Hello, good evening. My name is Ashley. I'm the Senior Director of University Engagement here at Western International University. I would like to welcome you to our webinar for being safer in the cyber world. Please join me in welcoming Ashley Matteson. Ashley is the founding co-director and chief operating officer of Elemental BPO, a subsidiary of Bedrock Consultancy. He is also a Western International University alumnus holding both a Bachelor of Science in Information Technology and an MBA in Management. Ashley's unique education and experience have earned him the privilege of consulting internationally with public, private, non-profit, and government entities. He served on the board of several companies, has written extensively on various aspects of IT security, and presented at industry conferences, and has lectured both undergraduate and graduate students at Coventry University in the United Kingdom. Ashley has had a fascinating career path, including U.S. Army service, ownership of a new subscription business, working as a cybersecurity specialist, and working for the U.S. government, and also a founding partner of an international business consulting firm that offers a snapshot business assessment to help businesses. An Arizona native, Ashley and his family have lived overseas and currently make their home near Denver, Colorado. Ashley, thank you for joining us this evening and sharing your knowledge of cybersecurity with our West community.
The first thing I wanted to share with everybody that's watching and participating is the first slide here, and it's very important to know that the meeting is being recorded, and that as you can read on the board there, you give your consent and so forth for Apollo Group to use this as necessary. So we're thankful very much for your participation and attendance. Now, I use the word participation because this isn't just a lecture. We're going to spend some time together this evening giving some background. I'm going to share with you some background on cloud computing, on big data, and how that kind of plays in. And then we're going to spend a good amount of time talking about cybersecurity, your personal privacy profile, and how we can really keep ourselves safer in this difficult world that we're in. Now, I'm going to depart for a moment from that and share with you something you may or may not have known. It's a little bit silly, but it's a fun way to start the class, or I say class, the webinar that we're having. So today is May 21st. It's actually a day called Red Nose Day, and I don't know if anybody knows what that is. So I'll slip on my red nose here for a moment. I'm going to take it off because it makes me sound silly, but I thought I would share that with you. It's actually it's about comedy, and it's about changing lives, and it raises money for children living in poverty in the U.S. and overseas. There's a special on NBC tonight. It's the first time that this has taken place in America, but I bring a little bit of my international culture in because this was actually a big part of life out in the UK. Everybody celebrated Red Nose Day. So I thought I'd start off on a fun note by putting out the red nose. Yeah, I see, Mark, that you mentioned it was Walgreens. Walgreens did sell them, so that was kind of cool. But again, I mentioned that just to kind of start us on a fun note, and to plug a good cause. So now that everybody's seen this first slide, I'll go ahead and proceed. There's my information. Please feel free and copy any of that down, and I'm more than happy to speak with you outside of this webinar and share anything that you like, any questions that you have. Additionally, feel free to put questions in chat. I'll either address them vocally or I'll answer them in the chat. That's absolutely fine. If there's something that I'm not sharing that you want to have addressed, please put it in there and ask, and I will do my best to address it. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk a little bit about big data first, just to give you an idea of how our information is being aggregated, if you will, and used on the internet. So the information that we provide through Amazon, when we buy something, or Facebook, or all kinds of different places. Any kind of big database that's out there can be used as long as permissions are there, and analyzed for marketing and sales purposes and whatever purpose they have. Telephone directories, things like that. Lots of different things constitute big data. So we'll talk a little bit about that, and I'll give a brief little technical spiel on how to deal with that. The next thing we'll talk about is basically an introduction to cloud computing, so you know what cloud computing is all about. Wei mentioned that I've had the opportunity of lecturing and publishing on several occasions. Some of the graphics you'll see in here are from a publication that I put out just this year in the Journal of, the Encyclopedia of Information Science and Technology, the 3rd edition. I wrote an article called, or a chapter, it's the 100th chapter of that book, called Cloud Computing Environments. So some of the graphics you'll see, they're graphics that I prepared, but you can also find them in that chapter of that book. Then we're going to get to what we came for, which is an overview of cybersecurity. We're going to continue that by talking about the Internet of Things, and then the privacy profile. Then as we get to the end, we're going to share together, we're going to learn a little bit about malware and threats and how to defeat them. Oftentimes people call malware a virus. We're not going to refer to it as a virus because it's really a piece of malware most of the time. There's other threats that are out there as well that we'll talk about. The goal that I have for you in this presentation is to come away with more knowledge on how you can be safer on the internet and in this cyber world that we live. So if you feel like you have questions related to that aren't being answered, or you don't feel like you're getting what you came for, please speak up, and we'll make sure that gets done. And then my last slide is just a picture and my contact information. So again, it kind of repeats what was on the front, so you can get a hold of me in either my private capacity or through just helping out West. I also want to talk about how grateful I am to West for providing my education, both in information technology and cybersecurity, specifically in the cyber realm. Really later education that I built on based on what I learned in West. And then the MBA was business-based, and being able to take and apply that and have great success. So we'll proceed then to the next area here, which is big data. So I don't know how many of you have heard of big data. By a show of hands, using your hand-raising icon, can you please raise your hand if you know what big data is, if you've ever heard of it, if you've dealt with it. Thank you, Troy and Rachel. It's an exciting. Is there anyone else? Okay, you can drop your hands down now if you like. Thank you for that, Troy and Rachel. Big data is, again, I talked a little bit about it. This definition kind of helps us understand. It's something that exceeds the capacity of the database systems that we have. So if somebody was using Oracle, or even MySQL or even SQL, something like that, right? Technical stuff here. But somebody's using something like that to have their database. If you're looking at all the phone calls in the world, or you're looking, or even in your state, or you're looking at trying to process or trying to search through all the orders that Amazon has done, right? In a period of 6 months worldwide. Those kind of things, and anything that you can think of, number crunching, right? You're trying to come up with some formulas, and so you have a bunch of different algorithms and things that are taking place in there. Anything that's too big to be processed on your regular computer or server in that database environment, or it doesn't fit the structures of your architecture, that's where you would do a big data sort of analysis. So the ways of processing it, and the ways that you can do it, I mentioned NoSQL. That's a free database, but that particular link gives you a list of different different NoSQL databases that you can use to process big data. Again, it's a bit technical, and if you're technical folks, awesome. Then you might know a little bit more about this. But I put it up because this is what's happening with our data, right? So anything that we put out there, and I pick on Amazon, there's other examples, but they'll take our data and they'll aggregate it through use of big data analytics. And this is done by using these kind of things. They use a platform as a service, or PaaS, which we'll talk about when I give you the cloud overview. And so that means that their platform is basically what will process all of this big data. And then they use open source for analytics, and Hadoop is a good example, so I put that there as an example. So I'll move on here now. This is a good question. What's next, right? So we look at the NoSQL database lists, choose a database. We select a platform for the database to reside, such as a platform as a service, cloud environment, or a traditional platform. So maybe we're able to run this on a traditional server. Then you have somebody write code to operate the database and populate it, and then you begin processing. So what would Amazon do with that data? So they put it all in here, they crunch it, if you will, through an analytic. They would take that data and they would use it then to figure out what you would like to buy and send you notices on it. And they've been doing that for a while. It's kind of data mining, but their databases have gotten so big that they have to figure out a way to process that. And so they would use a big data analytic to do that. Another example, and this is one of my favorites, the National Weather Service out in England decided they were going to approach this. Because think about the feeds that come in from the satellites that give the weather, right? The weatherman sits there and receives the information that's available and tries to process it and come up with a good weather report. What the National Weather Service out in England did, and it's called the Met, right? What they did is they created an analytic for processing all of that weather data. So it comes in and it gives all the weather data from the UK, from various satellites and sources, radar and all that kind of stuff. And then the computer is able then to come out with, through big data analytics, it's able to come out with a solution and give a weather report. Now, why am I telling you this? Again, when we're thinking about our personal information, I gave the Amazon example. When we're talking about other examples, use of big data in the cloud, we see weather and other things like that. Does this kind of make sense, this big data concept? Raise your hand if it makes sense to you. Okay, so I got Drew. Is everybody tracking? We're just giving a brief overview here. I'm just making sure that you kind of get a little bit of the concept. And if you have any questions, please post them. I'm not trying to give you a big briefing on big data. I just want you to understand how it plays in overall cybersecurity postures. So you don't have to know technically how it works. The bottom line is we're trying to figure out or understand that big data plays a role in our lives in the cybersecurity world. So anybody that didn't put their hands up, if they have questions, if any of you have a question, please post it down below or feel free and let me know when we have our question and answer session. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about clouds. Thank you again for everyone who participated. There are 4 different types of clouds, as you can see. We've got public clouds, private clouds, hybrid clouds, and community clouds. And I won't take up your time by describing each of them, because you can kind of see here on the slide what they are. Storage, utility, and analytics are public clouds, and I give you examples of what they are. Storage is one that we're all used to. Dropbox, right? OneDrive, Google Drive, all of those sorts of things. Utility, that's a type of thing that you would use if you want to replace your server at home or at work. You want to replace your server by using a cloud, you would be utility computing. There's examples of that. And analytics, those are the things that they use to host people that are doing big data sort of work. and other things that require high power processing. That's analytics. Now, that public cloud means it's out on the internet and it's available for you to access there, and other companies or organizations or people, you can let them use it as well. It's not locked down. Now, it is secure. I don't want to confuse you there. The clouds are secure, but it's out in the public realm, and you can access it via a web link. Now, private clouds, it's kind of the same, but they're built in-house usually. But then again, Amazon does offer special private clouds as well, where that cloud is dedicated to you. Nobody else can be on it. A public cloud, your data can be with somebody else's data. It's just like you're sharing a hard drive, except it's a massive hard drive. Actually, Willard, we'll talk a little bit about that. Yeah, the private cloud, there are examples within DoD and NSA of private clouds. And actually, I have a slide on that through a program called EyeSight. And the cloud that's out there it's called I believe it's called the commercial cloud. It's provided actually by Amazon, but it's a private cloud. Now, DoD, they would have their own private clouds as well inside their organizations, and I put virtualization there because it might not be a true cloud, but it's got virtualized data sitting on a clump of servers, and so they might call it a cloud, if that makes sense. Thank you for that, Willard. And I'm certainly willing to go into more detail as much as I can on that when we get to that point. And how to secure those, we can talk about that as well in more detail. But again, the focus of this is really for all of us to have a takeaway on how to be safe online. So actually, I believe public clouds, they actually do offer a great degree of safety. That's where our email is, and there's a lot of security that's involved in encryption in those storage environments as well as the utility. So I've done a lot of research on that environment specifically to make sure that I'm comfortable using it myself and sharing it with others. So private clouds, again, a good example, DoD, NSA. The private cloud that's in EyeSight that I mentioned that is on Amazon, unless you have permission from DoD, you can't go in and just join it. So it is considered a private cloud. So that's very good. Thank you. Hybrid clouds is a mix between the two. So a company is a really good example. They might have a need to communicate with their outside suppliers. So they want to have the ability for them to share that cloud with them. Now they can communicate because they can allow them in their public cloud or their private cloud. But the public aspect means that supplier could actually share that cloud. It actually costs less as well to do a public-private than it would just a private. So that's a hybrid. And a community cloud's obviously multiple clouds together. Now, if you're a visual person like I am, you'll see these models depicted here on this slide. So you can see the private there at the top, the public, the hybrid, and then the community on the side. These are the different cloud services. I already mentioned platform as a service. That's where development takes place. Software as a service. There's a lot of this going on right now. Microsoft Office 365 is a good example. This Adobe Connect, that's a good example. We're using, I don't know if West uses their own servers or if it's hosted through Adobe, but I know Adobe hosts these sort of things in the cloud. That's software as a service. Infrastructure as a service. The best example of infrastructure as a service that I like to share is if someone stands up a site for the Super Bowl, right? Then that site's going to be dead most of the year, but it's going to need a whole lot of processing power, compute power, come time for the Super Bowl. So they would use a utility infrastructure to do that so it can stretch, okay? There's your cloud services depicted and a little bit of information about them. This is where the U.S. government part comes in. So Willard, this goes a little bit more, and there's some links in here for you to go to. EyeSight says EyeSight creates, and this is the intelligence community specifically. This is all on the internet, public information. They create a powerful platform for innovation with the latest cloud technologies, powerful computing capabilities. it really provides a very diverse and opportunity for the government, DoD and IC being intelligence community. There is the link that anyone can look at for the Amazon Gov Cloud, so you can see what that does. And here's the reference location to all of those, the details about the U.S. government clouds and how they work. There's also something in the Defense Information Systems Agency, which is called DISA, that's called RACE, which is the Rapid Access Computing Environment. That's another example of cloud that DoD has implemented. Now again, why are we talking about all this? Why does it relate to cybersecurity? I believe that you're going to be more secure in a cloud environment than you are in your own environment unless you unplug your machine from the internet. And most of us are not going to do that. So in a cloud environment, you have built-in security. So that's helpful to know. And you can research right on Amazon's website. They'll tell you all about the security they have in their clouds. Okay? So what is cybersecurity? You can see this, shifting gears a little bit. It's measures taken to protect a computer or computer systems on the internet against unauthorized attack. Well, I would add to that, cybersecurity is protecting individuals. Because what about your credit card or your debit card? What about your utility grid? We want to be able to protect ourselves there and implement cybersecurity practices, operational security sort of stuff to help us be more secure in that environment. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. One of the keys is training. In the DoD, they make us take training every year. It's the same training. They might update a little bit of it, but it helps us have fresh in our minds, I need to think about security. I need to know what it means to protect myself from an adversary that's trying to get into my computer by sending me an email that looks normal, right? It might be a PayPal email saying you need to change your password. It might be a email that looks like it's legitimate from your bank. You know, there's all kinds of different things that can come. Those are phishing attempts, they're called. Now, if you open one of those phishing attempts and you click on it and then you go to the website and you give your information, then it's a false website and you've just disclosed your credit card number or whatever. Most of us wouldn't recognize that because it looks just like the real site. So that's something that we learn in our personal training as we practice and recognize those things. So I have here a link to the U.S. Computer Emergency Response Team, and they have some home network security skills that you should all take a look at. So please take the time and look at that link. Government cybersecurity, this affects all of us. There's a critical infrastructure protection program. It's through public law, and that helps us protect our interests in our infrastructures, like our buildings, our electric grid, like I mentioned, the power grid, banking. Those are some examples of critical infrastructure. So we focus on taking care of those things. The U.S. Department of Defense networks are covered by U.S. Cyber Command, and that's out at Fort Meade, Maryland, and under the direction of the Chief of the Cyber Command, who's also the Director of the National Security Agency. So now that we've got an idea of what cybersecurity is, and I know we breezed through that real quick, I'm trying to make sure we have plenty of time for questions and comments from each of you. Let's talk about the Internet of Things. This is relatively new. So it's a world where everything's connected. That means your television is connected. We already know that, right? Oftentimes, if you're going to Netflix through your television, it's called a smart TV. Same thing with your DVD or Blu-ray players. They're considered smart. There's all kinds of different things. So I put refrigerators. I threw some weird ones out here. Has anyone seen a refrigerator that's got a TV in it that gives you your weather or is connected to the internet in another way? Raise your hand if you've seen one. Okay, So I was at a friend of mine's house in Scottsdale, Arizona. Thank you, Troy, and Rachel. And they had one. And I was like, oh, this is what it is. I see. It's cool. You can walk up and again, it's connected to the internet through Wi-Fi. And it's basically for people, they're cooking maybe, and they want to watch the weather. They want to watch Netflix, whatever. They can do that through their refrigerator. Now, okay, so that's kind of cool, right? That's something we kind of like. Yeah, but it doesn't make ice. Good job, Drew. Um, that sounds like something I'd like, but what else is it sending through the internet? So that refrigerator then, it can potentially report your usage. It might in the future. I mean, it might be able to report what you're taking in and out. You know, depending on what they integrate into it in the future. Because it's now connected to the internet, there's an awful lot of things it can do. Now that said, it doesn't do it now, but there's these things called software updates that come out. Maybe the next version might have a camera in it, so it can see the inside of your fridge. Sorry about that, Troy. Hopefully you'll be able to get the recording and listen. And certainly you can email me privately, Troy, if you have any questions on some things that have been missed. So I want you to be thinking about that. It's not a no, don't get a smart device. Don't go out and get an Internet of Things. So firmware security is a good question too. The firmware would be, as long as it's put out by the company, right, and you know what you're getting, then it's okay to update. But again, it's accepting what you're getting through that update through firmware. Okay, so I would, as we move into the Internet of Things, I would kind of look at, like on your Android device, it tells you when you update an app, or on your Apple device, it tells you when you update an app what permissions have changed. I would submit to you that if there's going to be a change to a firmware on a device that is a smart device, you try and find out what changes are taking place. Just so you're aware, you know, you want to make sure that there's not a vulnerability there, that you feel there's a vulnerability that you don't want. It's all about controlling your personal privacy, right? And we'll talk about privacy profile in just a minute. So that's, I mean, I put refrigerators on there because they're kind of cool. Smart meters. So now a smart meter, now what it does, and that's a meter on that they put on your house that monitors your electricity. It means that the electric company doesn't have to come out and check it every month, right? They're able to get that update via the internet. And in the UK, they use SIM cards for that. So they use the cellular network as opposed to the internet. But either way, it reports back. Now, let me tell you what smart meters are also designed to do. And this is something, again, that may or may not be implemented in it initially. But it has the ability, or can have the ability, to monitor usage of all the devices in your home when they're powering on and powering off, because that meter then is connected to the electricity in your home. So let's say that your refrigerator, now this has advantages. I'm not trying to be scary about it. It has advantages because you know, hey, my refrigerator is using this much power. Okay, maybe I need to get a more efficient refrigerator. My computer is using this much power. Maybe I need to turn it off at night so I'm not consuming this much power, right? And your smart meter in the future, the idea is that there'll be an interface that you can log into through the internet on your computer in your account at your electric company that will then show you all the usage in your, yeah, exactly, Mark, all the usage in your home. So again, the reason, Mark, you raise a good thing. The reason that I'm bringing this up is because people don't think about this. This is all about being safe in a cyber world. So that's why I'm sharing these things with you. Now, yeah, exactly, Mark. The thing about it is, depending on your tolerance for privacy, this might all be okay with you. You might be willing to have this out there. I think some of this stuff is cool. And I'm okay with my privacy profile being a little bit on the sharing side as opposed to the I was going to say hiding, but really secure side, right? The controlled side. I don't mind letting the electric company know that my refrigerator is running at X amount of watts, right? Sucking up that much power, and my TV is. So, all right, well, thank you very much, Willard, for being here. Please feel free and email me if you like, but certainly listen to the recording. So we're gonna bridge into the privacy profile in a moment. But let's go along this list a little bit more. Health devices. These are being developed right now. A good example would be a pacemaker that reports back your heart rhythms to the doctor through the internet. So you actually have a Wi-Fi emitting device in your chest. Because obviously you can't plug it back in. You could, but it'd be kind of hard. You have to have a wire hanging from you. So having devices that report back either via the internet, by Bluetooth, whatever, but that check back to the doctor so that he or she can monitor your medical conditions through health devices you have. This is a good thing. This is a bad thing. We have to talk about securing those devices to make sure that a hacker's not going to break into them. So how do we encrypt them? How do we make sure that they're safe? So that's really for the developer of the device to work on. But before we have one of these devices used in our bodies, we should make sure that they're secure. Make sure we know the risks and be aware of that. Okay? Now the last one, I have to give credit to a friend of mine at Microsoft who shared with us. He said, if you ever share this story, make sure you give me credit, is cows. So there's a farmer who monitors his cow's health by a biometrical device that he'll attach that reports back via cellular or Wi-Fi. So that's actually in use now, real thing, right? And these health devices are being tested throughout the world, so they're real too. All of the stuff I'm presenting to you is stuff that is actually either in use or in active development. So here's the privacy profile. How much do you expose to social media? No worries, Jefferson. It's great to have you here. Thank you very much for attending. How much do you expose to social media? Right? So when you're going out and Facebooking, how many of you check in? Let me see a show of hands of how many people check in when they use Facebook. Maybe they go to a cool concert and they want to say, hey, I was at this place, right? It's a pretty cool feature. I kind of like it myself. That said, I'm very careful when I check in. The reason that I'm careful is because now Facebook knows my location, and everybody that looks at my Facebook account can see I was there at that time. What happens if my house was empty? A robber might be able to come and break in my house because they know that I'm not there because I just posted that I'm at the movies or that I'm on vacation. So keep that in mind when you do post those things. I tend to post after the fact. But if you're okay with knowing that, you're exposing that, fine. That's okay. That's why this is a privacy profile, and it's your personal tolerance, okay? And I use Facebook as just an example. Now, again, it's about how much you want to expose. So we already talked at length about the Internet of Things and what you expose via that. Just be aware. Do you care that that Netflix might be monitoring what you're watching? Actually, they do. And they might be doing some statistics on it. Excuse me. Do you care about that? Do you care about, I gave the smart meter example in the future. Do you mind if the electric company knows that you're using your microwave this much? Or that your fridge is being used, it requires this much power, your TV, whatever. That they actually know the patterns. They know that you turn on your TV every night at 7 o'clock. So you're watching whatever show. They absolutely do, Mark. And that actually goes into big data too, which we talked about earlier, because they can take all of the database of things that are going on with Netflix, for example. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. I assume they do. And they analyze what you like and what you don't like, and they put more of that up. Okay? You're right. Companies do not want you to know that they do that. They put it in very small print if they put it at all. So how often do you log into Facebook or in MSN Live or Microsoft Live or anything like that? When you do, Google's another good example. You can turn off your location history or you can turn it on. If you have it on, it shows you everywhere you've been with your phone. Everywhere you've been. if you have a Google phone, right? I don't have mine on, but I have a friend who actually likes that because they're able to go back and track where they've been, when they've been, etc. It also allows you to track your phone if it's lost. So there are some advantages to these things. It's about knowing what you're into when you're into it. How often do you tweet and about what? We're going to look at something called a heat map in a moment that talks about that tweeting activity. And then again, the last thing, did you know that nearly all the data can be aggregated because it aggravates me, aggregated, and it's by companies, and it's done all the time. It's a business, it's a business decision that they make. As an MBA and with my own company, Wei mentioned that we do a survey called the Snapshot Business Assessment. When a company does that survey, we tell them that their data will not be used for any other purposes besides working with them. So I'm not going to aggregate that data in my company. If I was going to aggregate the data to see on average what people liked and what they were doing, and I was going to compare it and do analysis against it, then I would disclose that right up front and let them know that. So that's an ethics discussion that we get into as well. Some companies are ethical, some aren't. Some put it in little print, but you just need to be aware it's going on so that you're prepared to deal with it. So let's talk about some interesting things. You can call them cool, you can call them scary, whatever you like. Yeah, exactly. The member cards do the same thing. That's a really good example, Mark. You've got so many great examples. I appreciate your contribution. They do give you a discount, but some people actually opt to not use them. Every time the card is scanned, it records what you're buying. That goes into a database. Very likely that database exists in the cloud, which is fine, but they're doing an analytic against it to work with it. So yeah, there is a trick around that, Mark. Oftentimes you can ask them if you can get a card or use a card. You just get a different card every time you go to the store. Then they don't have your details. But then you don't get a discount on gas either. You don't get your gas points. So again, give and take, right? Is it worth your privacy to do these things? For me, I allow it. But that said, not everybody does, and that's cool. It's your own personal choice. So let's talk about these things I have up here. Bing Maps. Wow, this is kind of cool or scary. Bing Maps using Microsoft Cloud, right, Azure Cloud. It allows you to fill in the photos if the photo is GPS tagged. So let's say we're at West, right? We're out at the beautiful new building. Hopefully you've all had a chance to be there. I had a chance to be there with Wei a few weeks ago, right? Yes, I agree with you, Mark. And I'll show you that. Let's say that I GPS tagged my photo and I was standing in front of the West building, right? What street side photos could do is actually fill in the rest of that picture. So you would see the beautiful water that goes across the street. You'd see the parking. You'd also see the University of Phoenix building and the surrounding areas, even though your picture was just in front of the West building. So that gives you an idea of what GPS tagging on the photos can do. And you can choose to have that on or not on. So the heat maps, and you're absolutely right, it is part of the marketing process. The heat maps we're going to show on the next slide. It's very interesting. When you're chatting on Twitter, the heat maps are an example of where you can track what people are saying, where they are, and the level of energy in that tweet. So let's say that we were talking about, let's talk about the grocery card, right, Mark? So we were all tweeting at the same time about grocery cards, and we're in different places, right? I said, I like grocery card. Well, mine would show up green, right? Mark says, I hate the grocery card, and every time I have to use it, I feel like stabbing the clerk. Obviously, you didn't say that, but that's going to show up really red, right? So it's got that heat there. I'm not a big tweeter either, but sometimes I do. A lot of people tweet. A lot of people do. So it has that emphasis piece, but it also shows how many people in the area are tweeting on that. It's kind of a cool thing, tweeting is, because it allows you to tell a story and reach an audience pretty well. It's especially good for marketing. I don't know how many people are business students, but it's phenomenal to be able to reach your customers directly without any problem. So, yeah, that's a good point. Very good point, Drew. The last thing that I have on here is Foursquare. And this is interesting because it will identify, it uses Facebook, right? And maps and, all kinds of different things. It allows you to identify things that are near you. So you can hold up your phone and it will pop up these places and it will say, Jack in the Box, Carl's Jr., hotel, here's West, here's University of Phoenix, etc. And it will just grab it from the maps, like it says here. It uses the maps to do that. Yeah, and you're correct. A lot of people do look at those posts. So again, it's that privacy profile. We have to think about what we're putting out there. So there's a heat map for you. I don't know what the topic was in this, but you can see there's yellow and orangish red. There's not a lot of green there. Okay, just to show you what one looks like. And it will actually show the tweets that are taking place. Mark, can you see that heat map? Is it there? Oh, goodness. Well, I just switched the slide, so it should be there. Is it showing up yet? Okay. I'm going to flip back to the previous one and flip to it again. Is it up there now? Privacy profile. Okay. I'm not quite sure. You were 2 slides behind then. So can anybody see the maps single sign-on and tracking slide yet? Well, I apologize for that. If you can advance your own slides, that would be great. I'm going to continue to advance these. No, I wasn't, Troy. Let's see what this is up here on the right. Oh, that's just my pointer. If they're stuck, maybe you're able to move them on your side. I'm moving them on my side here. Okay, good. All right. So let's look at that heat map for a second before I get there. Can everybody see the heat map? Okay, good. And then the slide previous to that, if you go back one slide, there's loads of links there, so you can go back and look at these different things I've been talking about. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. All right. So now let's move to just no problem. It's my pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for helping. Let's go to threats, insider and outsider. This is just basic knowing about what threats are. Insider, accidental. That a lot of times that's what happens. Social engineering might take place. Somebody might call them and say, hey, I'm from the IT department. Can you tell me the name of your computer? Can you tell me what your login is? Can you tell me your password? Heaven forbid. Don't ever do that. Social engineering, right? Media, it can be accidentally done by media because somebody can send you a chat request and have something hidden in it or whatever, some sort of hijack on your computer. And then unauthorized changes. So you might install something you're not supposed to accidentally or on purpose. Either way, you're not intending to threaten or hurt. Okay. Malicious, well, you're ticked off. You might be like Edward Snowden or other insiders that really they maliciously do something. So they either take it. In his case, he took information out and then shared it with the media. In other situations, people will actively attack the network from the inside. So the insider is the easiest way to get in the network and attack. Yeah, that would be nice. That would be very nice. Let's see, where do I find this under resources? So I will leave that question to whomever can answer it. I'm not the best to answer that question. But worst case, Jefferson, if you don't have it and you can't get it, I can send it to you or Wei can. All right, so the outsider, they get access into the system either through an insider or they attack and win. Okay, malware. Here's some examples of malware. Everybody remember the Melissa virus, the I love you virus, right? That was a pretty scary thing. That was a true virus. It actually sent out to do harm. It was one of the last true viruses. Then we have worms. These happen all the time. It's where it attacks your email and sends out to everybody in your email a message. That's very popular now. Malicious code, mobile malicious code. This is something that you activate in your own browser. A pop-up will come up and say, will you activate this ActiveX? Well, you better know what that is before you allow it. A backdoor, somebody comes in to your system unauthorized. A Trojan horse, that can be planted in your system. It's again a form of malware where it can be planted in your system and then they come in and use a backdoor. Yeah, like a SQL injection, exactly. A user mode rootkit, that's where they actually change the way Windows works. And a user attacks your login, right, in Windows, so it changes it at the login level. And then kernel mode, they actually go deeper into, and they get the system level. And you can defeat either of these. And then there's a combination which could be any of these things. Now, this isn't a malware briefing, so I'm not going to go into detail on how to defeat them, but I'm going to show you some tools. The next slide shows some tools to help defeat these things. There's Microsoft Systems Internal Suite, which is free. You can download it. There's Wireshark that helps you see if someone's attacking your network because you can look at network tracking, network monitoring. Antivirus is also wonderful. You need to have an antivirus. It comes free with your operating system, or you can go purchase one, or you can get another free one like AVG. So you got Microsoft Security Essentials and AVG. Anti-malware, there's also free anti-malware on your system, Microsoft Security Essentials. But you can also go out and download other ones like Spybot Search and Destroy. That's another example of the anti-malware software. And last, sometimes files are not able to be deleted easily, and so we use a program called IceSword to do that. Okay. So there's my presenter information, but I'm going to go back to the slide previous and share with you some of the things I mentioned earlier. Jefferson, you weren't in here, but I mentioned phishing and how to avoid that, right? We want to be in a position where if we see an email that looks suspicious, that we're able to defeat it. Also, people ask about banking. How do you keep your credit card safe, right? One of the ways to keep it safe is to be careful when you use it online, to make sure that you're using it on a secured site. So the address will be HTTPS, and there'll be a lock somewhere on the browser depending on what you're using. You always want to make sure you're on a secured site before you ever use your credit card or anything like that. So I mean, at this point, we're to the end of the formal presentation. We have 15 minutes left, and there's loads more that I could share with you. But I want to give you exactly, it does only affect the transmission of data, right? So again, you need to trust the source that you're going to. I use on my website, for example, when I take payments from people, I use authorize.net as my payment provider. And they also do a check on my website to make sure it's safe and secure. It can still be stolen on the end, absolutely. So what do we do? What do we do to avoid that? Well, we do our due diligence to make sure when we're giving our information to somebody that we know who we're giving it to. We know that we're on the right site. We know that we're giving it to a trustworthy source. Okay, that's the best advice I can give you. Correct. Thank you very much, Troy. There's all kinds of different things because you don't want to be hijacked. We have to be careful to do that, to protect ourselves against that. Now, what happens if by no fault of your own your information is stolen? If it is stolen, immediately you contact your bank and they're able to get you a new card with a new number. I know it's a pain, but it's safe, right? That means that your old credit card number doesn't work anymore. Also, the banks carry guarantees against cybersecurity attacks. hacking and things like that of your information. So you're able to in most cases, get the money back if someone has made a purchase. They'll wipe it out. Additionally, excuse me, you can also contact your credit agency and put a flag on your account that says that your identity's been stolen. But the way to avoid identity theft, the reason I left it on malware, the way to avoid identity theft is to make sure that you're checking your internet or you're checking your system regularly that you're using to make sure that there's nothing on there. You're running anti-malware, you're running antivirus, right? And I've been a victim as well, but I caught it quickly, and I was able to take care of that. It was by no fault of my own. They'd stolen my credit card through a purchase I made at Home Depot, I think. One of those guys. But my bank immediately shut off my card and called me. So that's a new thing. It's actually a bonus that that's in place. It's annoying when you're out trying to shop and your card's declined. Oh, goodness. I'm so sorry to hear that, Jefferson. Yes, they do. Exactly. SolarWinds has got some awesome auditing tools. Thank you for that, Aubrey. There's so many ways that we can protect ourselves, but bringing it back to our individual, someone that's maybe not the most knowledgeable on these things. There's a training that you can take, or at least tools, at www.us-cert.gov, and then a backslash and home-network-security. That basically gives you a bit of your own personal training, right, on what you can do to help keep yourself secure and safe. It's important to make sure that we do this. With our energy, we're trying to make sure that they're protected properly as well. So the emerging technologies class, I'm assuming, is what you're speaking of, Jefferson. Is that correct? Great. Yeah, that would definitely be a topic that I would suppose would be brought up there. There are so many things we can do to keep ourselves safe, and we need to make sure that it's lifelong learning, everybody. I'm sharing with you a couple of tools. So I'm going to shut up for a moment because we only have 10 minutes left. I really want to give you the opportunity to ask any questions or share like we've been doing in the chat. Now, I don't know if you have microphones, if you're able to use them. If you do, by all means, feel free and use them. So I'll answer that, Mark. Some uses of the heat map, good and bad. The good thing about it is that you're able to, they're mainly marketing, right? Again, it goes back to that. Somebody said it's all about marketing. They can be used for that, exactly, outliers. They can also be used, sure, I'm happy to. It's also in the briefing. But they can be used for crime prevention. That's what they're used for a lot. Police department will do a heat map, and they'll be able to track if somebody is really ticked off about something, and they're going to go out and act on it. Then guess what? The police now have a tip because these idiots posted it on Twitter, right? They said, oh, I'm going to go rob a store. Well, guess where the cops are going to be going? They're going to be tracking them and following them and making sure that they prevent that robbery. Okay, so yeah, I mean that's a very good example, crime prevention. And again, it can also be done for product promotion, right? If there's a brand new, I just bought a Samsung S6. No, I'm not plugging Android, but I could be out tweeting about that. Sure, Dorothea. I can be out tweeting about that and then get other people going. And a Samsung person is probably going to run a heat map to see what people are thinking about that. And Twitter will allow you to do that pretty easy. Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways, Mark, that a heat map can be used. Now, bad and good are there. If somebody's looking to get into trouble, right, they can see what other like-minded people are out there, find them, and connect with them. And then we get into something called hacktivism. Yeah, so I'm going to try and pronounce your name. Is it Fimo? Hopefully I got that right. Yeah, so there you can see that there's an example of the camera on the fridge or on the phone on the laptop. No, there's nothing wrong with covering up the camera. That's fine too, if you don't mind that. So Captivision, that's a good one, right? Captivision is when someone, uh, as far as I understand, it's when someone grabs your feed to your webcam and they hijack it. And so and to be honest, that's the first time that I've heard the term captivism. I've just heard webcam hijacking is what they've called it. So I'm assuming, Mark, that you're right. We can Google it and find out if Captivision is that. But if it's not, then I'm sure that that's another good topic that we could hit. But camera hijacking is definitely no. I said hacktivism. I'll type it. Hacktivism. So to go back to hacktivism. Oh, okay, great. Thank you very much, Aubrey. So hacktivism is something that the heat map could be used for because the group could see, look, there's these people that have like minds. Then they go onto Facebook and they start gathering people together. They create an event, and then they go and exercise that event. They call it hacktivism because they're kind of, I would suppose, using it's a cyber term for activism on the internet. So yeah, the heat maps can be set up. I know Twitter offers it, but here you see that there's an app for social media monitoring that Aubrey mentioned there. Yes, thank you, Jefferson. That is a very good example. That's a perfect definition. I didn't do it quite as well as Jefferson did there, but that's it. Yeah, they go and do that, but they actually will go out, and the reason it's TISM, the reason that's on there, kind of like activism, is because they go into the system, they grab people, and they really they get them together, and they're called hacktivists as opposed to activists. So I mean, there's also phishing I talked about. There's multiple types of phishing. Spear phishing is targeted phishing at certain groups. I mentioned IT as an example. There's just so many different things that we can cover in here that we don't have a whole lot of time. Does anybody else have topics of interest? We have a couple more minutes here. Anything else that anyone has related to this? Oh no, I didn't cover that, Jefferson. That's another another form of that kind of same attack. It's another example of it. Since you're bringing it up there, Jefferson, do you want to expand on that? Again, we only have a couple minutes, but if you want to expand on farming, you're certainly welcome to. I mean, it's the act of grabbing. It's kind of like fishing, except it's larger, is the way that I understand it. So Troy, I believe that. I mean, if you think about when we're doing just military exercises, I would assume that would be something that they would use there to grab that. And well, let's talk about when flights are getting ready to they've got their black boxes, right? All of that data is being captured and shared via whatever vehicle that they need. Now we have internet in the air, so very likely those things are reporting back to the ground, so that they don't have to find a way to store that, right? They're storing it in the cloud. They do. Yeah, absolutely. So there are so many good uses for this technology. I don't want you to leave this webinar thinking that technology is bad or that the Internet of Things is bad. I want you to be aware of your privacy profile, your privacy footprint. I want you to know what you're doing out there so you do it in an educated way. If you're okay with that, Great. What about wearables? Does anybody have Fitbit or other sort of devices, right? Cell phones, yep, Gear S. I mean, all kinds of different things. Those guys are something new as well because they do have Bluetooth technology. You know, Apple Watch, yep, that just came out. So those are things that we have to protect too. I mean, we can put these things on our cell phones and on our devices to be able to protect them. Just because we're talking about traditional computing environment does not mean that it has to stop there. So I know we only have about a minute left, and I respect everybody's time, so I appreciate you being here. I very much appreciate the opportunity that I've had as an alumnus of West to my experience with cyber. As Wei mentioned, I've had great experience being able to share this around the world, and it's wonderful to speak with you today and share that experience. Thank you for your participation. I mean that's really up to West what they'd like me to do, Troy. But I mean that's certainly an option. We can that. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you everybody for your participation. I appreciate it.
Well, Ashley, thank you so much for taking the time to present this to all of us. And I would like to say thank you for each participant and the one that listened to this session. So the one that we will do, we will send you the link, the recorded session for recorded link, and also the PowerPoint presentation, the one that Ashley presented to us. So thank you again. So have a good evening and also wonderful weekend this weekend. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.